Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the third instalment of the Three Pears chat from Worcestershire County Cricket Club. I'm standing host for tonight. I'm Joe Tromans. I'm delighted to be joined this evening by our Chief Executive Officer, Ashley Giles, and the new Chairman of Worcestershire County Cricket Club, Dominic Riley. We've got a lot to cover this evening. We're going to have a bit of a drinking spotlight on Dominic Riley, our new chair. We're going to pick up with Ash and others about performance throughout the season today in both the Vitality County Championship and the Vitality Blast. We're going to go through kind of a few challenges faced by the club over the last few months, what's been going on behind the scenes. We're going to also move on to what's happening off the field in the next few months at Visit Worcestershire New Road as well, before talking about some future developments and things in the pipeline as well. Before we move on to that though, I think it's a perfect time to reflect on what was some heartbreaking news between now and the last episode of the Three Pears chat. Sadly, one of our players, Josh Baker, passed away at the start of May. It's been a very difficult time for the club, and our thoughts and everyone are still with Josh's family and friends. And I think it's been very tough, hasn't it, Ash?
Yeah, it's difficult to believe that it's now almost 2 months since we lost Josh, and in that 2 months, it's been incredibly difficult, as you say, for everyone at the club. It's a call you take as a chief executive you never expect to take. And clearly as parents in Paul and Lisa's case, who have had an incredibly difficult time, and we've all tried to be there for them and the wider family, and for our players as well, who have found, as we said, it's just really difficult, an awful situation. And Josh will be dearly missed as he is currently. It was a real bright spark in that dressing room. And we now often, I think, reflect in a really nice way. We held Josh's celebration of life at the ground, which was a really lovely day, as lovely as those days can be. Really difficult for everyone.
Yeah, and I think Josh will obviously, he was an infectious character. He'll never be forgotten at the club. I think there's some things in the pipeline when the time's right, and we're going to support the family on what's to do to remember Josh and his legacy further down the line, isn't there?
Yeah, we've talked about it a bit already. There'll be certainly some stuff for us to talk about, Dominic and I and the board, around what we can do that is more lasting in Josh's memory, and work with Paul and Lisa as well. They've been very keen to support a couple of charities already, one of those being the Worcestershire Foundation. As Josh came through the Worcester system, was very much one of our own. So we'll take a good look at that and do something really special for him. As I say, he continues to be missed.
Yeah, thanks, Ash. I think it is important to have support of the club's always behind Paul and Lisa and the family and his friends as well. Forever, really. Josh always remembered by everyone at the club. I'd like to put in Dominic now, actually welcome him formally to the Three Pears chat. Dominic's our new chair, has officially announced and unveiled formally last week. Dominic, you share a little bit about your background, your journey, why you're interested in becoming the chair of Worcestershire County Cricket Club. I don't want it to feel like another interview. But yeah, just share a little bit about insight into your background. That'd be great.
Well, there's been several interviews, and the process has gone on for an enormously long time, actually, since about January. I know the Cricket Club wanted a very thorough process to find a new chair, and so they got the ECB in to help and ensure that everything was done properly and the widest group of people were looked at. And the truth is, I was approached along with a lot of other people, and my interest was really piqued by three things. First of all, I love sport. I've got a strong background in business and think I can help the club. And also I've got a real fondness for Worcestershire and a bit of a history here as well, which I'll come on to. But from a sporting point of view, I went to a very sporting school, played a lot of sports. I've got three children, and that got me into coaching and ultimately refereeing. So I've been involved in sport as a player, as a coach, and as a referee for more years. The school I was at, I grew up in Nottingham. It's probably the closest school to Trent Bridge, so summers were watching cricket at Nottinghamshire, and the winters watching Nottingham Forest play at the City Ground. So bigger fascination with sport. Business, I did an MBA at London Business School, so took business professionally, felt I could study and become the best I could be at business, and then corporate life in marketing, business development, ultimately CEO myself, Ash, and that's my background. And then the last 20 years, I've been a chairman and a non-exec of lots of different businesses, and I think that they thought that would be useful, just the variety of businesses I've worked with, some in the sporting field, some in other fields. And one of those was Morgan Motor Company in Worcester, and I was chairman at Morgan Motor Company for several years on behalf of the Morgan family. So I know Worcestershire well, I know Malvern well particularly, and had a real success there with working with management team and producing what were the best results in Morgan's history. So when that combination came together and I got the call, it was really just seemed to fit and fall into place, and I was very, very enthusiastic through the process.
So on to big cricket fan as well. So other than Ashley Giles hitting the winning runs at Trent Bridge in the 2005 Ashes, what's your best cricketing memory?
Well, I almost met Ash in 2005. He won't remember because he was on top of an open top bus, but he came past my office in London with a few other people on board the bus were hanging out at the top, I think, at the time with Freddie Flintoff. But no, you did come past the offices on that Ash and Billy team. As I said, my school was very close to Trent Bridge, and we were a very sporting school, and our head of sport got some of the Nottinghamshire players to come down, and we got the chance to bowl against them. One of them was Derek Randall, if any of you are old enough to remember Derek Randall, a very fine England cricketer and particularly a great fielder in his day. But so we had the chance to bowl at Derek Randall in the nets. I was probably about 15 years old, and I started off bowling at him, and after 2 or 3 balls he put his bat down, picked up a stump and started batting me with the stump and tonking me all over, and that sort of taught me what a level these guys were playing at. But it's the thing that sticks in the memory.
So I think as the new chair of the club, have you got any sort of vision, any kind of plans in mind for the future?
I think it's early stage. From my experience being a chair, the key is to work with the teams, work with Ash, work with the management team. We've got a very, very good board at the club, and I want to work with the existing board and really work together on a strategy for the club. One of the things that I obviously know on day one is the level of flooding that we've had, and even during my interview process this year, the number of times we've been flooded, clearly that's very high on our agenda, and the knock-on effect that's had in terms of gate receipts and all those things that go with it. We had so many games rained off, we had to go to Kidderminster, and that's had an effect on the club. So there are some short-term priorities. The team's done a great job, but we do have to do the short-term and then look at the long-term. Ash has talked about a few things in that area, and we will be working as a team on a new strategy. I'm also very keen to meet the members. I'll be here on Sunday for the England women's game, and I'll come as often as I can and meet the members and get feedback there. But we as a board and as a management team will work on the strategy.
You touch on some of the challenges there. What other challenges do you face what's the biggest challenges the club face right now, in your opinion?
The focus for the club is sustainability, right? And that is on the pitch, off the pitch. We are not the biggest club in cricket. We're in a fabulous position. We've got a wonderful position in the city. It's both a cricketing venue and also a venue for events, a venue for entertainment. So we've got a number of things going on and off the pitch. But at the same time, we aren't the biggest team in the division. We don't have the largest wage bill, so we've got to be as competitive as we can with the resources that we have. And I think that's the challenge that probably Ash faces, because he's running both the cricketing side and non-cricketing, is making the non-cricketing work, getting the profits generated off the pitch that we can invest into the team and put the best team we possibly can on the pitch. And getting those things right is definitely a challenge, but not one we're frightened of at all.
Any immediate opportunities which you see for the club?
Well, I've been around a few times and I've got a few ideas, Joe, but I'm holding back on them because you've got quite a busy slate of work already. But yes, I see a few things. I think some of the recent investments you've made, the Beard Terrace, for example, fantastic location, and perhaps we can make more of that on non-match days. The ground itself is superb. I think the chance to market that more as a business venue and as a venue for events is also big immediate opportunities. And then sponsorship. I think we as a business in the heart of Worcester, I think we're terrifically well placed. We have a great audience that come to the games, coverage on TV as well. The England game on Sunday is going to be on TV. So in terms of sponsors, there are lots of opportunities for sponsors of Worcester to get a very high profile.
Yeah, I mean, how important do you think the support from the local businesses are, sponsors and partners of the club in the future of the club?
I think it's crucial, and one of the things we were talking about earlier, Ash, is I want to get to know some of the chairs around other other cricket counties. Because what we do in Worcester isn't necessarily competitive with what happens in Essex or Nottinghamshire. And we can take the best ideas from other counties and successes they've had. But I think for businesses that are locally based or targeting a Worcestershire or more broadly, Black Country audience, we're so well placed for that. And we should be right at the top of their list of partners to think about. And I think that's twofold, if I might say, Joe. I think when you look at a sponsorship, you're looking at one measure, which is how often do you get on TV, how much exposure do I get in social media. I mean, I was at marketing as you are, and so you're looking at bang for your buck. But let's not forget the social value of what we do. We're very, very embedded into the community. We encourage cricket at every level across the local area, and we're the beacon of that. And that, for sponsors, is to me as important as how many eyeballs have we got watching a match. Let's not forget all the things that surround what we do that are there right through the year and that have a real positive impact on youth cricket, on women's cricket, on men's cricket at every level. So those things are both important to me.
So looking ahead, where do you see Worcestershire County Cricket Club in 5-10 years' time?
Well, winning the county championship, Ash, I hope, but we put out a good team, winning at least one or two of the. I think in 5 or 10 years, it'd be nice to win at least one or two of the trophies, wouldn't it? In that time, so I think on the pitch performance, I come back to Joe, sustainability, and that is financial sustainability of the team, the club, the pathway for players, and the flooding. This is not a problem that's going away, and I sort of hesitate to come back to it, but we must come back to it because the sustainability of the club does require finding a solution to a ground that's flooded 8 times. I've known as I've grown up, the weather has definitely changed in recent years, and it's not getting any drier in the winters. So it's a problem that isn't going away, and we're going to have to face it, and in 5 or 10 years deal with that problem.
Thank you very much. So handing over to Ash a little bit in the immediate next phase of 3 Pairs chat. We're through the first block of Vitality Blast fixtures.
Yeah.
We're through the first block of championship games. What's your summary of that so far?
Yeah, well, I think one thing we've always been on the 3 Pairs is honest and open. I think what I'd like to do is split up the performances. So look at red ball first and then also look at the white ball, because they're very different competitions and offer different challenges. We said as early as the winter, soon after promotion, that we knew Division 1 cricket would be extremely challenging. I believe we're the most promoted team in the country, and therefore we're probably the most relegated team in the country. So staying up, some may not think a huge goal, but we believed actually that would be a fantastic effort for us. And part of it is because of some of the stuff that Dominics just touched on. So we're up against some sides here with much greater resources, much more depth in their squads, much bigger revenues, ultimately. And as I've said before, my job, and I love that word Dominic used, sustainability. We're on the same page. Sustainability on and off the field. If we're not sustainable off the field, we've got no chance on the field. So that's the difficult balance to strike. And if you look at our squad, we're a squad of 19. 4 of those guys are rookies, young players who, haven't really been challenged in an environment that's as tough as that Division 1. We have a number of injuries right now. So Gibbons injured, Yadvinder Singh's injured, Dolly's still struggling with his shoulder, Joe Leach, our most experienced bowler, is injured. Additionally, we've lost 7 players over 2 years, 7 senior players, almost a whole team to other counties. Now, there's a bit of mitigation there, but the challenge remains. We want to stay in Division 1, and we've got to, we realise, we understand that challenge is very difficult. The last three games, 2 of them have been against Surrey, who in my mind are the toughest side and the strongest side in the country. And have the deepest resources. So that's the red ball. Again, the challenge remains. Stay up in that division will be an incredible effort for Alan and the boys, but we know that's not going to be simple. And then we look at the Vitality Blast, in which we played so well last year. And I think that's there are areas there where we'll be disappointed. There's probably 3 or 4 matches within that tournament where we could have and probably should have won, matches that have gone down to the last ball. And when you're delivering your skills consistently and effectively, you'll win those matches. And that's been disappointing. I know the dressing room will be disappointed with that. But again, there will be some mitigation there. We've got new guys in, a lot of guys moved out. So we're still finding our feet as a time in our lineup in T20 cricket. And you just don't get that time. So you can see why Richo and the coaches would have changed things a little bit, mixed it up as they've gone along, because they're trying to find that formula. They will get some criticism for that from the outside, but you'd get criticism if you didn't, if you just sat still and didn't change anything. So what I do know is it's been a really challenging couple of months. We talked about Josh. That's not using that as a crutch, but that's definitely had an effect on everyone at the club. I don't think we can underestimate that. But overall, what has impressed me even over the last few days is the fight we've shown against Surrey, that really good team. And we've got to continue to show that. And when we come back and play blast cricket again, we've got to show a bit more skill and just deliver our skills a bit better. So, must be better. But in terms of from what we've got and where we've come from, I can't ask much more of the team and the coaches. And we've just got to continue to push. It's a long season, but push all the way through the finish line. And hopefully we'll achieve that goal of staying up.
I think you touched on there the challenge of small squad, turnover of players, a lot of injuries. From with your one hat on as a sporting director and probably in your past experience as a head coach, how difficult is that to manage, that big turnover, the loss of players, the small squad, and kind of what options do you have, both as a sporting director and a head coach?
Well, I know from experience it's incredibly difficult. The most successful teams I've worked with and managed, there is consistency, and there's consistency over a number of years. There may be a little bit of in and out, and that may be age, that may be form, but the core of your team, almost, in football terms, the spine of your team remains the same. Just talked about 7 players. There's a reason the 7 players who've left have left. It's because they're very good players, and other counties have come in for them. And as I've said before, we're gonna face some of that in the future. So it's incredibly difficult to manage for Alan. I feel for him, but we've got to do the best we can with the resources at our fingertips. And one thing we have to do that we've done very well in the past is continue to develop players and give players opportunities and not get stuck in this gap in between of trying to be a Surrey or trying to be a Warwickshire, because and I understand the sentiment from Dominic, the new chair. Winning the county championship for us right now is not a realistic proposition. That's a real Leicester, if not lower down the leagues. Wrexham probably winning the Premiership at the moment with the resources we have compared to Surrey. And I know I've talked about that before, but to give some sort of context, Surrey are a fantastic business. This isn't a slight on Surrey. It's not about them having all the money in the world for no reason, but their turnover last year was somewhere around 60 million quid. Ours is around 6. So the depth of those resources are very, very different, and we have to understand that. And people might be looking down the camera right now and saying, well, go out and get more players.
Go out and make more money, commercially.
We simply can't afford to do that. We talked about sustainability. We talk about balancing both sides of the business. I mean, Joe, you've done a fantastic job with sponsorship already. We've doubled sponsorship this year. But there is a ceiling year on year to what we can manage, as there is to what we can sell at the ground. And we are doing everything we possibly can to give cricket as much resource as we possibly can. But in the meantime, we need to be clear about our purpose. Play competitive cricket, develop players, and bring people in. We talk about a lot, Joe, to have great experiences at Worcester. Some of them would have gone away during T20 not having great experiences because we lost, and we apologise for that. But we're certainly trying to put that right.
Absolutely. I think you touched there on young players, bringing young players through. I think Worcestershire have become quite famed for the production of a bit of a conveyor belt of talent, which has come through the English first class system, gone on playing at Worcestershire and other counties as well. From your point of view, Dominic, how important is that going to be going forward as well?
Well, I'm glad Ash raised that, because I think that's going to be very important. And I think Ash's points are well made. Lovely to win the county championship, great aspiration for 10 years. But realistically, we don't currently have the resources. And so when we do talk about players, I think Ash has been very good, by the way, and the team on finding some loan players and the overseas players as well, Ash as well, who have been a really good choices this season and have had a real impact. So I think wisdom in bringing in players. We've got some loanees now as well, but we've got to be developing our own players. So the pathway of players into the team, and it's pleasing, as you said, Ash, to see so many of our players having come through that pathway. Giving an opportunity to local players to develop and play professional cricket, and then go on even from Worcestershire, as you say, to even to the highest levels of the game. So it's going to be so important with the resources we have. That has to be a crucial part of our playing strategy.
And I think, Joe, it's important to say the ambition remains. It'd be great for us to have a seat back at what I call that big table with those big teams. But that's going to take work. That might take a different strategy, a different road, a different path for us. But we are open to all of those options, because there'd be nothing better than seeing Worcestershire back where they were in the 80s, winning major trophies, consistently competing at that level. That's a very exciting prospect, but at the same time we have to keep our feet on the ground and be very aware of where we are right now.
I think that's all part of trying to be and aim to be the best we can be all the time, isn't it, on and off the field. I think we'll probably come back to that later, but I just want to touch on, Dominic mentioned you're doing a really good job on bringing loan players in and overseas players in. We may have touched about this on previous shows actually, but I think it's worth going into a bit more detail, because I've seen slightly from the outside how much hard work that can be. I think probably for you, probably for the cricket operations guys.
Yeah.
How difficult is that these days? All this kind of almost wheeling and dealing, not just overseas players, loan players, and actually things like trialists as well. It's a lot of work, isn't it?
Difficult for everyone, including you, because ultimately when it comes to kit, it always comes back to your door. Carrie Lloyd, our fantastic Director of Cricket Ops, does a great job there. Getting players in is always a difficult task, and getting the quality and getting the right fit with the dressing room as well, because what you don't necessarily want to do and you want to avoid is again almost playing whack-a-mole, where we've got a gap, we just get someone in. Because anyone you bring into that dressing room, we've got a fantastic group of guys, really great culture in that dressing room. You don't want to disturb that. We've been really lucky with the people we have brought in. We've done a lot of work on the guys we brought in permanently, like Tommy Taylor, Rob Jones, Ethan Brooks. But then when you look at Nathan Smith as overseas, couldn't ask for any more. Jason Holder, who came in, can't ask for any more. And then people like Bash, who's been in recently, again, just add to the dressing room. And it is a route. We may have to go again. I've talked about the size of our squad. I've talked about our injuries. It's a real issue for us. We've probably only got 12 bodies standing who are fit to play. So it is a challenge, but it's all part of the rich tapestry, and it's an opportunity for counties with deeper resources and more players to let those players out. And I certainly thank the guys who supported us in doing that.
Yeah, in terms of, I think we're looking for overseas players, and to unearth someone like a Nathan Smith, it's not a 5-minute process.
Yeah.
It's a lot of planning, it's a lot of research. I mean, what does, for the benefit of everyone who kind of has kindly tuned in to watch, what does that process kind of entail?
Yeah, well, it's probably slightly different in this role for me, because I'm ultimately Chief Executive and I carry Director of Cricket responsibilities. If I was purely Director of Cricket, I'd probably lead on all of it and bring the coaches in. Alan Richardson's fantastic in this, in that he and his team, including the coaches and the analysts, will almost put a long list of candidates together, and then I can come in and we can work through them, and I can challenge, and we can go through the risks and the benefits, and But ultimately, a lot of that hard work's done by that team first. And then we can go through it and we get to a short list and we get to the right answer. I have to say Nathan Smith was a real pick from inside the dressing room, Richo and the team. So
they're still arguing over whose idea that was, I think.
Yeah, well, I think they would, because he's been that good in addition. I think we'd claim him as English if we could. Yeah. But it works for both sides because, well, we clearly get a great overseas player who adds to the dressing room. He gets opportunity to show what he can do and hopefully go on and get international honours.
Yeah, and I think the bits that probably people on the outside don't understand is even once you've chosen that's the player you want, there's still quite a few hurdles to cross as well, aren't there? You've got things from, like, you then have to speak to agents, governing bodies, national cricket boards, before getting a deal done, and then you're looking at things like visas, and it's still quite a laborious process, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a long old process, and I have spoken about this before, but an example of that is the Osama Mir situation with T20. So 2 or 3 days before the T20 competition started, Osama Mir had been a fantastic overseas player for us last year, really added. And we have to get something called an NOC, a non-objection certificate from the Pakistan Cricket Board. They would not sign that. There was nothing underhand there. It was part of their rules and regulations that I think was lost in translation somewhere, and Osama couldn't come. And that was when you look at blows as well, that was a big blow for us. Cash missing the few games of T20, also a blow. So all those things again upset the balance. But there is a hell of a lot of work that goes into it. And with many of these guys, no guarantee they're going to be with you for a long period anyway, whether that be because of selection, injury, or any other issues. And we've been really lucky with Nathan that we've been able to have him across formats, and that, have him around the guys all the time. And we look after him as well. So this game's a great example. You'd think against Surrey, where you've got to have Nathan out there. We had to rest him. He's played so much cricket. We have to do what's right for the cricketer as well. We can't just burn these guys because they are ours. We need to look after them, and that care is very important.
I think on the flip side of the really long process of trying to sign an overseas player, 2 days before the first game, Osama couldn't come, as Ash talked about. Very quick process involving quite a few people to end up with Hayden Walsh, I think, who was on the golf course, sent straight to the airport, arrived at the Premier Inn, visit Worcester New Road, with his clubs ready to go, wasn't he?
Well, that's the complete opposite, and the extraordinary bit about modern cricket, and particularly franchise cricket, that you can 1 minute be on a golf course in the West Indies, and I think pretty much 20 hours later, he was in the Premier Inn, with only, I think, a rucksack that he had over his shoulder.
And he set a golf club.
So obviously the essentials. But yeah, Hayden's been a great addition again to us. It's very difficult, no matter how many of these competitions these guys play, just to come in and expect to settle. But he's been a good addition to us. He's a real live wire around the dressing room, really good fun. So it's been great to have him.
Off the field.
Yep.
We've talked about, in previous 2 shows, every members forum and probably all over local news, national news, the effect of flooding at New Road. We've talked, I think, in previous shows and quite regularly that fact not being able to pay those first 2 championship fixtures at New Road cost us in excess of £250,000. But is there a bigger commercial knock-on effect to that as well, which is affecting the club? And I feel that some of this might be coming back to me. It's a bit of an odd hybrid role as host and contributor probably, but what is that kind of knock-on effect? Is it much deeper?
Yeah, so both of you can add. From my perspective, the initial is probably around £250,000 hit, and that is the move to Kidderminster, lifting everything up, taking the infrastructure there. It is the loss of earnings during that period at New Road. But then what we've almost seen is a bit of, I think, consumer nervousness around New Road, and are we open, aren't we open? And I can certainly say we are open. We're open for business. There's a lot going on. Dominic touched on the non-match day stuff, the hospitality, and obviously we've got T20 matches still. And we need people's support. We need people to come to New Road and support us. So I think also it would be fair to say that the weather's been an issue. We've not had great weather for the start of the blast. We are now, I mean, a gorgeous couple of days, and I hope that continues. But I'm pretty sure that's had an effect, because I don't think we're alone in T20 numbers being down. But again, we need everyone's support. We need everyone to come back to the club and spend their pennies with us.
Yeah, I think starting on T20 numbers, I think what I think we do in cricket really well is collaborate across the counties. Ultimately, off the field, we're not competing against each other. We do a lot of work with each other. We benchmark and kind of compare and help each other out as much as we can. And we are seeing those drop off in blast numbers. What there is coming forward is more support in terms of promoting the blast going forward from the ECB. Each county, I think I'm all right to say, is getting a pot of money to help them promote the blast going forward and make that bigger and better. And that's both in part of the marketing efforts and actually the matchday experience side of things as well, which should really help us. We've talked about great experiences. That's a massive part of that. We've expanded our commercial team this week, actually. We've taken on a new marketing manager to help with that, help get more people into the venue, both cricket and non-cricket. As Ash has just touched upon, I think we are seeing that consumer nervousness. We are very much open at Worcestershire New Road. We've got a load of great events on this summer. We've got a great concert lineup. We've deliberately tried to put different types of concerts on for different groups of people and different demographics, just to try and spread that out. There's a lot more cricket to come this year. There's more T20 games. We're really ramping up that off-field experience to complement the cricket as well. So there's a huge amount to be excited about still this summer at New Road, really. So it's kind of just working hard, everyone as a team, and kind of taking a breath and seeing what we can do to make sure that everyone knows we're open for business and we want to do those great experiences.
Can I add, because I'm an occasional visitor to New Road, right? I didn't grow up in Worcester. So you who have spent all your time here, you almost don't realise what a fantastic venue it is. And coming on the Friday night to the Birmingham game, the T20, is a brilliant place to watch cricket. You know, it's probably the finest ground, I'd say, in the country in terms of outlook. And on a summer's evening, it's an absolutely brilliant place to watch cricket. And I think that's something you might forget if you were there every day. But both of us were there pretty much 7 days a week, actually, out there. But it is a wonderful place to come watch cricket. It'll be a wonderful place for a concert or for any kind of activity. And as you say, it's good that we want people to get behind that and go and have a great night out. And the T20 was a great night out. We lost, but it was still a great night out. And the lads put in a great performance on the pitch. And the off the pitch, the hospitality, the availability of food, drink, the spaces, they were fantastic. I was really, really impressed by it.
Yeah, and you've got, I mean, you touched on the concerts upcoming. I mean, the sun's out. Dominic said the setting with the cathedral in the background for we've got the Rocket Man and the noughties v the 90s, or 90s v the noughties, which is right in my sweet spot, Joe.
More of an 80s man myself this side, Ash.
But yeah, it should be a couple of great nights out, so come down, that'd be fun.
I think, as Dominic mentioned, it's good to hear someone coming in as an occasional visitor and saying how great the experience is. We keep talking about great experiences. We've invested a lot in those experiences, both in terms of infrastructure and both of resource and training in terms of people. And we're going to continue to do that, aren't we? I think that's central to what everything you and I have been trying to do.
Yeah.
And you've been amazingly supportive of me and the commercial department of that for the last year now, I think.
Yeah, it remains essential. We've said at members' forums, we're not going to get everything right, and we hold our hands up to that, and we accept that, and we welcome the feedback, but we are trying to deliver and make those incremental improvements all the time. As long as we're improving and we're moving that dial, then that's the most important thing, and that's what I see over this last, well, I'm almost making a year anniversary now in the role. So yeah, it's those great experiences are essential, and that, you know, we've talked a lot, Joe, about the ultimate vision is around being the destination of choice for all those things: live sport, hospitality, and other events. That's what we want to be in Worcestershire, and there's no reason why we can't be that.
And I think as well, I think it's a good time to touch on, I think the human element of this is the absolute cornerstone of what we're trying to do in lots of different ways. I think when I came in, I've been at the club 6 years. When I came in, I kind of walked through the office doors and went, well, where's everyone else? I think you probably had a similar experience, and probably Dominic, you have as well from your background.
Sure.
But I think what the size of the workforce gives us, and the size of New Road, Visit Worcestershire New Road in particular gives us, is that opportunity to give everyone that really close-up human welcome to the club. And I think that's where we can really be different to other grounds, these bigger grounds and entertainment venues where I think you can go in and not get noticed because you're just a number in a stadium. But for me, I think it's great that you can come to New Road, someone will interact with you, smile and say hello, and try and help you personally. And I think that's something that really sets us apart, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And you're right. I mean, I had that experience. You say, walked in the office and saying, "So where is everyone?"
Yes.
This is it. So that's just a reminder to everyone out there, we're not blessed with hundreds of staff. So, when you see people around the ground and you ask who does what, it's pretty much that group of people does everything, and they're trying to deliver. But I do think that human element's really important. You get that at the smaller venues and the smaller clubs. It becomes much more personal and less corporate. But that doesn't mean the experience and the quality shouldn't be high as well, and that's what we're trying to deliver.
Yeah, and as the new boy, I'll add to that because the welcome has been second to none. It's fantastic. As you say, I'm a remarkably small team, but very, very warm welcome, and I've seen that on match day as well and experienced it myself. And the team at Visit Worcestershire New Road couldn't be nicer, but also very, very professional. It's a really good combination. We were looking today, Ash, right, we've got a great loyalty in the team. We don't have a very high turnover of staff, and so it's a factor that people really are good at their jobs, and that presents well to anybody visiting the ground.
Brilliant. I think I just want to move on now to actually talk about the women's rapids for a bit.
Yep.
I think we've got some exciting news to share, and we'd like to share some detail around that. And I think, Ash, do you want to lead from the front on that one?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of questions in the past around the Tier 1 and Tier 2 process for the women's game. Everyone will know, and been asked a lot of questions about why we didn't bid for Tier 1. I think I've answered that. But we have bid for Tier 2, and that process is very much underway now. Actually, over the next couple of days, we're going to be sitting with ECB and going through our bid, which I think is a really good bid. And to reinforce, we take women's cricket very seriously. We want to support our women and girls in Worcestershire and give them the same opportunities that our boys and our men do. And even if that means that our players move on at some point and join the professional ranks, fully professional ranks, then that's what happens. But our job is to develop high quality players and give them opportunities. And I suppose just to give a bit of background there, Tier 2 differs from Tier 1 because whilst the setup, the coaching setup and backroom staff will be professional, the players will remain amateur, be fully funded in terms of expenses, and so they won't be out of pocket, but they will be an amateur team compared to Tier 1, which would be fully professionalised. But we're very hopeful that we'll get one of those teams, and I'm looking forward to it.
So, Dominic, from your point of view, how important is the club supporting the growth of women's cricket to you?
I'm glad you asked that, 'cause it's very, very important. And as I said, I'm coming back on Sunday to see the England women's game, and I want to see us support women's cricket. I want to see women's cricket at New Road as well, by the way. So as much as possible in the future, if we could add that into our 5-year, 10-year vision as seeing more women's cricket in our ground, and we're going to grow that through the application, as Ash has just said. That's going to be important. But I've been involved in coaching and refereeing different sports, and the growth of girls and women's sport over that period has been one of the things that has been fantastic, and one of the things we should celebrate. The success of the England women, both in football and in cricket, is probably outshines the England men, dare I say, in many respects. So that's the measure, isn't it? We want to be part of that. We want to be involved in developing players and putting on entertaining cricket.
Well, the next bit was meant to be a cue-in for me plugging the England women's game against New Zealand at Visit Worcestershire New Road on Sunday. However, it's not needed because we've sold out, which is great. It's the first time we've ever sold out a women's fixture at Visit Worcestershire New Road.
Wow.
Which, again, I think
news.
speaks massive volumes for how much the game's growing and how important people in Worcestershire see that as well, really. In terms of our application for Tier 2, is there anything in there? What kind of details in there? What have we done to maybe stand out as an application?
Well, actually, I mean, you could probably pick this up a bit more than me. But there's a couple of things that we've done already with the women's rapids, and again, you've led on. Standalone sponsorship, I think, is really important. So putting the spotlight on the women's game, because so often we see sponsorships piggyback on the back of the men's game and almost be a bit soft. But Ativo have come in, sponsoring our women's rapids team, and we're looking to grow that. I think the element that we've talked a lot about, Joe, and as you termed it, rapids on the road, is actually taking the women's game out to clubs as well. Dominic's point's a really good one about them playing at New Road, but actually taking women's cricket out into the clubs, into the community, and putting a show on around that, whether that be, a food village, entertainment, the mascots, getting kids interested in being able to play cricket in the intervals. So really taking it out there and sharing it with the community rather than expecting people just to come to us all the time.
Yeah, and I think to come back on that, again, weirdly as host and a contributor, the whole Rapids on the Road concept is, actually we could play all the women's cricket at New Road. Is that the best thing for the growth of the women's game within Worcestershire? Actually, I think as a group we've looked at and thought, in the short to medium term, actually getting that women's Rapids team out around Worcestershire to different grounds around Worcestershire and the Black Country, building that matchday experience, activate around that, and help grow the women's game. Actually, we're going to be in a much better position in the longer term with a much kind of broader group of people interested in women's cricket and understanding to grow that in the longer term, get more players on the pathway, whilst actually using showcase games at New Road as well. That's kind of the basis behind the Rapids on the Road kind of strategy on there. I think Ash just touched on it commercially as well. It's something that the commercialisation of the women's game, for me, and I think for us, should stand alone from the men's game. As Ash said, Ativo have come in and been really keen, they're really supportive of that. And actually the commercialisation of that is to bring more money to support that women's programme as well. Just so actually, there's tier 2 money involved, but actually we've set quite a high target above that so we can put even more into that programme. I mean, it's that important to us, isn't it?
Yeah, and an element of that is working really closely with the foundation, who many of the county cricket clubs now, the first class counties, those two organisations are joined. We're not, we're still separate organisations, but I'm really keen we work closely together. I think we have a really good relationship. We sit in the same office even, don't we? So we do get on well, and spreading the word of cricket through recreation, through the women's game, through girls and boys, and getting them playing and involved in cricket is really important to us, and that connection with the community, which, I know at times when results are tough, there'll be elements out there who go, oh, you just don't care about us. We're not important. Cricket's not important. It absolutely is, and certainly our contact with the community is really important, and we really want to build that.
So moving forward more, lots of questions as normal about the 100. Where are we at with the 100?
Yeah, well, I mean, most of it has been shared in the media, I think, not by us. What I can say, I think, is that we are making good progress in terms of some agreement amongst the counties around what the future of the 100 looks like, and the possibility of private investment, which my personal view is that's going to happen, and I think it's important it happens. And I know I've said it time and time again, but one of the most important reasons it happens is that it's important monies into the game that underpin the whole game. It's not just about money that underpins a franchise competition or makes the rich richer. We all own the 100, and therefore we will all benefit out of the sale of those sides. So I think it's really, really important. We've come a long way down the line. I think we're getting there, as I say, but as with all these things, the devil's in the detail. So when it comes down to the detail, there's going to need to be a lot of work done, but there's the desire and the intent to get that work done, so we can, we've got the right product to go to market if it goes when it goes to market, and we want that competition to be as successful as it possibly can. So, you've talked about potential sale. If that was to happen, there's a lot of questions coming from members. This is a question to both of you. What would the club do with any potential, what people have termed a windfall from the 100 sale to the club? Well, look, I think there's and this is quite a broad question, it'll be a broad answer. So, and Dominic can come in a second. There are a number of different things happening at the moment, aren't there? That people will be aware. There's the project underway with the ground that the board made a statement about looking at all options for staying at New Road, what that would take in terms of mitigation of flooding, etc., development, and option 2 is, well, what would an alternative venue look like? So that project's going on. So we don't know what the outcome of that will be. We're hoping that by end of July we'll have option 1 pretty much finished, and we'll be able to communicate that with members and supporters. Option 2, depending on option 1, is probably a bigger piece of work. But coming back to any sale, any monies, a lot of that will depend on what I've just talked about, option 1 and option 2. You know, we also carry a fair bit of debt as a club, and that debt profile, if anything, is what is costing us, because you know, without that debt and with the work you've done commercially, Joe, we'd be in a pretty good spot. But we, you know, the pay down on that, the repayments on that debt, the interest, can be quite crippling, and it becomes difficult to work with day to day. So to be able to clear that debt at some point, or at least reschedule it, would be also a nice bonus. But what we don't want to do, certainly what I wouldn't want to do, is just waste that money. This is probably a one-time deal, and going back to that word Dominic used at the very beginning, this has to be about us being sustainable in the long term, and there are a number of different images of what that could look like, but sustainability is crucial.
Well, I think Ash has put it very well, but you know, when I first came along and looked at the challenge that the flooding brings to us, financial costs of that, we're very open with the members in terms of the financial position of the club. At the AGM, you laid out the position and the level of debt in the club. And when I look at the 100, you know, one part of my job, along with Ash, is to go and represent Worcestershire up at Lords and with the ECB, and we will be fighting Worcestershire's corner at every level. What the 100 in the short term, the sale of the 100, the sale of the franchises, the competition isn't being sold itself, of course, but the sale of the franchises, the short-term benefit for Worcester will hopefully be an injection of cash. And as Ash said, there will be some funds for development, depending how large that sum is, but the priority has to be paying down the debts. You know, we're a profitable club, but we have quite a level of debt in the business. In fact, most county crickets, I think nearly all of them, carry what I would consider probably too much debt for the level and size of the business. I mean, you know, as I said, I've spent a lot of time in business, and we do look at debt levels in as ratios to companies' profitabilities. And you're looking at a comfortable debt level is basically a certain ratio of your profit. And I would say Worcestershire is a little bit higher than I would like to see, being honest with you, and being honest with the members and viewers. You know, the debt levels in cricket are too high. And so a windfall from the 100 for Worcestershire would initially be spent, I would say, Ash, on paying down debt, because the debt service and debt repayment schedule is tough even for a profitable business, and that's just being straight with people. So getting the debt level down, getting those franchises sold, getting Worcestershire shares as much as we can secure, paying the debts down puts us in a much more sustainable position, because therefore what's left of that can be invested and future profits can be invested as well. But if you're making profits to pay interest and debt repayments, that is a more difficult position to push the club on. And so if we can improve the debt position, it puts us in a much stronger position off the pitch and on the pitch as well, Ash. I wouldn't waste it all away, but a profitable club can clearly put some more resources onto the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're halfway through the year, we're halfway through the season. Talking a bit more short term now, what are you both looking forward to between now and the end of the year or the end of the season? Dominic?
Well, I'm going to come and see a lot of games. I've got to get into the business side. I'll be honest, my main focus as chair is the business side of the club. You know, Ash and the team manage the on-pitch aspects very well. And although I say if they're looking for a number 11 who doesn't bowl, then if we're very short of players, I can step in at short notice. But no, the business side of the club is going to be my focus. The other focus is going actually to as many games as possible. And some of the away games, I want to get to know some of the other board members in other counties and chairs and so forth, and just to see if we can learn things, Joe, from other counties. I don't think anything they do is competitive with us, so the more we can learn from what works in other county crickets areas and stadiums, the better. So I think that sort of sees me through to the end of the season, and then the winter we'll be looking again at the budgeting cycle and how we look for next year. Yeah,
well, firstly, I mean, it's great to have Dominic on board. We've been without a chair since Fanos left in December. And Dave Baker's done a fantastic job as vice chair, and Pridge before that, and the rest of the board had a huge amount of support. But to have a chair now is a big boost, and to lead on that overall strategy and the governance is so important, and has probably eaten up quite a lot of my time this last period. So looking forward to that. I mean, for us, Joe, both of us, I suppose in many ways it never ends, does it? So we move from game to game, we move from event to event, and sometimes sleepless night to sleepless night. But it's great fun, it's a great club, and we've got a lot of work to do, as we talked about at the beginning, to play better in the Blast, but to stay up in Division 1. We've got to play some cricket, we've got to win a couple of matches, but with the group of guys we have, if we can get some of them back on the park as well, then no reason why we can't do that.
Coming up, this is one thing I'm most looking forward to as well. Metrobank One Day Cup. Last year, it was brilliant. We really changed what we wanted match days to look like. We really changed what the ticketing model was. To see Visit Worcester New Road packed full of families, kids on bouncy castles whilst watching the cricket. Just a great family day out, which I think was really good value. I can't wait for that to come around again this year, and that is going to be very soon.
That was great fun. Yeah, and we played good cricket. I hope we've got a team we can stick together by then. But more than that, as you said, and the weather was great, it just felt like really good old-fashioned days out of the cricket.
Oh, it's brilliant. I think for me, one of my first memories of New Road was coming down, playing on the outfield in the lunch interval. Yes. We got kids and families back on the outfield. They could play with their families if they want. We organised some stuff with the foundation, which they could take part in as well. And then afterwards, autographs of the players and things like that. And it just felt like a multi-generational, brilliant family day out. Yeah. And it was just great fun, right in the middle of the summer. Yeah. And I can't wait for it again.
Let's hope the sun stays out.
We're due some more, I think. Yeah. Right, so I think that actually wraps it up for today. First of all, I just want to thank Number 15 Recruitment for being our title sponsor for this and their support of that, along with Midland Road Studios here. Massive thanks to Ashley Giles, our CEO, for joining us today. And massive thank you and welcome to Dominic Riley, our chair, for joining the club and joining us today as well. Sure. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be on to episode 4 before you know it, I'm sure. Thank you very much, and we'll see you at Visit Worcestershire New Road soon.